Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That is Jack. I'm Conrad, and this is the Footy 5 back with some perfect windows in our Transfer Stupid series. This time, Manchester United. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, we'll talk a little bit about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's new contract, extending his stay until at least 2024. There's a kicker in there. I'm not sure if it's a mutual option. But this is now his third-ish season. Took over from Mourinho in December of 18. Third fastest United manager to 50, behind the man he replaced, as well as Ernest Mangal. 159 matches, 89 wins, 35 draws, 35 losses, which is a 56% win rate. No cups. And I think the biggest problem that I have with him is with Paul Pogba, and he cannot get the best out of him because he can't figure out how to pair him properly. But Pogba has had 4 goals in the Premier League and 6 assists in the past 2 seasons. And that's just... yeah, they're coming off a second-place season. But you £93 million transfer, and you may lose him for nothing because he's unhappy and doesn't want to be there.
I think it would be a big deal to get him to sign a new contract. I think there's actually a good chance of that happening.
He wants to go to PSG.
In my opinion, I think PSG makes a lot of sense for him. The wages, they could really use a player like him. I think they can get the best out of him. Imagining him and Wijnaldum with a defensive mid behind him as a midfield trio, and that'd be unreal. Feeding Neymar, Mbappe, Di Maria out of him.
Ridiculous.
That'd be an unbelievable.
That's the link for them, I think, for winning Champions League.
I think PSG are one of my favorites for the Champions League this upcoming season, but this isn't the perfect window for PSG. They've already had their perfect window. I think I understand your skepticism with Solskjaer, and I have had my skepticism with him. I think he's a limited manager tactically. He is a questionable
4-2-3-1, 4-2-3-1, 4-2-3-1, 4-2-3-1.
And he does
4-2-3-1,
not rotate. You saw that with Bruno Fernandes's abysmal showing in the Euros. He was burnt out after 60 matches because they realized this guy scores goals for us. Let's just play him until his legs break.
Well, he scores a lot of those from the penalty spot.
Rashford, play him till his legs break. So I think that I understand that he's limited as a manager, but I don't see how you move him on after last season.
What's your better option?
You could argue, as we may argue with our stats, that they overperformed. Doesn't matter. You finish second in the league. Until he underperforms, it gives you a reason to fire him. Maybe the Europa League final was a reason to fire him. I don't think it was. I think this is a team that has a lot of building blocks to go through. I think they're a few signings away from being a genuine contender. And if they, after these signings this summer that I think they will make, do not win a trophy, not just compete for one, do not win a trophy next year, I think he's got to be gone. That's the issue I have with the contract, because then you're looking at 2 years you have to cut off. That's a couple £1 million that you just needlessly added. I know you can't really. It's like the manager of the Oakland A's in Moneyball. He's complaining about his contract being running out. He says players know it's running out. I know it's running out. I got to
get a good job.
There's no faith in me. So I think they had to say Jadon Sancho, Rafael Varane, whoever you sign in midfield, this is our guy. So like him or don't like him, he's our guy. We're behind him.
What I don't know, I mean, you're going to make the new director of football, the hatchet man, John Martel, who just came in and did do a good job with Sancho, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But Ed Woodward is on his way out, whatever his title is. So he's the one that's quoted in the release. I didn't read the whole thing, so maybe this other guy is as well. But
I think that
lame duck.
The perfect replacement, the guy to move him on for, was Thomas Tuchel. And Thomas Tuchel's at Chelsea now, because Tuchel took Chelsea,
a 9th place team.
He took a team in 9th place, got them into the Champions League, got them to an FA Cup final, and won them a Champions League. He took a side that was underperforming under Lampard after spending £200 million and won them the biggest trophy in all of Europe. So he would have been the perfect guy, but he's not available, obviously. You got to maybe a Conte. But I think what Solskjaer is building is he's building a culture. Maybe he isn't the greatest on-field manager, and maybe he might not get them there at that point. But he will tee up the next manager in a great spot. And I don't think firing him after that Europa League final was going to have that continuation, as opposed to if it sours a bit, if it goes bad a little bit, and you need a fresh voice, a fresh face, that would almost be a better transition than moving on when you're on top. It's a bit controversial, but I think that this was an okay decision.
I just think the lack of ability to get anything out of Paul Pogba is ridiculous.
I think a signing or two that could unlock that is a very important thing.
But he's gone. January, he's going to sign a pre-contract and he's going to be out.
I think he's staying, man.
I don't
think he's going to get the wages he wants at PSG. I mean,
He's got one big contract. This is it. And I think he's going to be very careful about where he wants to go. What's going to get me the best shot? And in the Premier League, is this going to be good enough to get us past Manchester City? Yeah, potentially. But the problem is they've overperformed a lot. We talked about this with Spurs when we did the video for them. They're almost 10 goals more than what was expected based on the run of play.
Second most behind Spurs in terms of overperformance of their XG. So what that means is you had effective finishers, and you finished a lot of chances. I think Cavani, one of the best finishers in the league. Fernandes, very good finisher. Rashford, very good finisher. Martial didn't play a lot, so that's why I think the XG is overperforming. I'm not a huge Martial fan. Greenwood is a tremendous finisher. I'm really excited to see his development. So that's the big reason for this. The scary thing is, if you do not improve this underlying expected figure, you could be expected to deteriorate. You were fourth on expected points in terms of what you created and what you conceded in terms of chances.
And
so
outperformed by almost 8.5.
Biggest margin in the league in terms of what they were expected to get and what they actually got. So in my head, what that means is you cannot look at second place and say you have one team to improve upon. You have at least three teams.
Tuchel for an entire year and center backs at Liverpool.
And Manchester City, who I think they'll sign a player to this window. So I think you have got to make serious improvements. You cannot sit, and I don't think they are. They signed Sancho, obviously. They're close on Varane, if reports are to be believed. And I think they want a midfielder too. So they are not going to sit back and say, we got our Champions League football. We're okay not to invest like they have in recent windows, because I think the Glazers are feeling the pressure a bit. They would like to keep their dividends. They like to keep their asset. Not on the slide. But I think that they are recognizing that maybe we should shut these fans up and don't have our Liverpool versus Manchester United match postponed because of another protest.
That was a Super League thing.
Yeah.
Ed Woodward, bye-bye.
And Woodward was the fall man for that. But I think that there are still a lot of problems, especially the next slide. Set pieces.
Yeah, I mean, they did bring in set piece coach from Chelsea's under-23 side, Eric Ramsey. Third in goals scored from set pieces.
Pretty good.
19th in goals conceded.
Yeah, that's bad.
That's like over 10% of their goals from set pieces.
Yeah, that
conceded.
It is not. They are bad on set pieces. There is a feeling of scaredness,
dread every time
when
there's
there's a set piece. And so that's something you have to work on. So Eric Ramsey, he's not coming from, Chelsea U23s, you could argue, but I think he will probably help them. I don't imagine if you can go
any
downwards.
Focus will help.
Exactly.
I think.
Exactly. I think they've got players to score goals, help challenge on set pieces. Harry Maguire, most notably. I think he's fifth in the league in terms of aerial duels won. He's a tremendous player in the air with that big forehead of his. He manages to get on.
Head.
It's so amazing. He gets on a haircut. He gets on so many corners, but just can't put him on frame. I think that they do need to
scored one in the World Cup semis, and of course scored on the.
He needs to. They need increased focus, increased concentration, and I think increased work in those in the set piece areas before they can really become an elite side.
So in terms of the questions they've got to answer, they've got goalkeeper challenge. De Gea has been terrible, getting worse and worse and worse from really 17, 18 on. Dean Henderson, you're spending a ton of money on these guys. Last year, we showed a statistic, I think, where
it was Romero, Henderson, and De Gea were like in the top three. There was a top 10 goalkeeper earners, and only one of them can play at a time. It's not like the Ravens in the NFL where you have like Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco playing at the same time. You can't have a two goalkeeper setup. I had a dream where the left back was a goalkeeper. That would be amazing if you had like three goalkeepers. So you're just like chilling, defending the edge of the box, and you just catch the ball.
That's called rugby.
That is called rugby. I understand that.
All right. So then you need a center back partner for Maguire. Ideally, quickly. We play as high line as they like to play. You can't have. We've talked about this. You cannot have Harry Maguire running for his life towards his own goal.
I think they've been playing kind of a medium block. They play about in between their own box and the halfway line, which is a good spot for Maguire because
it's still too far.
It is a bit too far. I think you saw with England, we had a lot of protection in front of him and a competent partner in Stones. He was phenomenal in the Euros.
Really good.
So sign a good partner for him that has recovery pace, positionally can be comfortable. Because Maguire, I love the dog-cat descriptions of center backs. You need a dog who's willing to go get the action, the Manjovic, who's going to get all the headlines for the tackles, but also the misses. And then you have the cat, the Rio Ferdinand, who will sit back. He will kind of wait to kind of pounce. Maguire has a bit of both in him. That's what all the leading center backs do. The only issue is when he wants to pounce, he's a little slow on the pounce. So I think a good center back partner that is not Lindelof could really, I think, improve their side's ability to play in that high line they want to play, because they have a possession problem. They're fifth in the league in possession. They want to be hitting the mid 60s range, like Liverpool and Manchester City do. They're only at 55%. So
why are they hanging upside down? That's what I don't understand.
I thought it was about Spider-Man, Wan-Bissaka. So I just kind of like had them hanging out.
Like Matic, they got to move on. His legs are done.
I think having him around,
he was the key to unlocking Pogba in the early days. Was
yes.
great. That's when Pogba's productivity was through the roof for them.
My big issue is I don't know if Pogba and Bruno Fernandes can coexist in a side realistically. I don't think you can play them both in a midfield three with a defensive mid. Matic, I don't think you need to move him on, but you need someone who has as talismanic an effect on Pogba, on Fernandes. And if you want to play a 4-2-3-1, you can't play Pogba in the pivot because he's not defensively astute enough. McTominay, he's actually developed quite a bit. I have to give him some respect for that.
He's done a good job with
him. But
him.
He's not a defensive mid. He's a box-to-box midfielder. Is he going to start over other players? No, but you want someone so he can actually play his best role. He got like 8 goal contributions last year. He's actually a pretty good box-to-box midfielder. Maybe he's the Scottish Zidane. Fred...
I didn't say it. That's
Fred.
He's not actually.
I think Fred has.
It's the Alpine Messi. No,
Fred has potential. How old is Fred? Can I say Fred has potential? Fred. I'm getting like the Fred from
Fred Rogers?
Fred footballer.
Fred.
He's 28, so he doesn't have potential. He's near.
He is what he is.
Prime. He is what he is. So I think they don't have an established defensive mid. And I think they really need one if they want to play the 4-3-3 they've been experimenting in preseason. And if they want the 4-2-3-1 to work without Pogba at left wing.
Already signed Sancho for £73 million from Dortmund. They saved about $30 million waiting a year, but he also dropped off. He had 20 and 20 goals and assists back in 1920. Last year, 10 and 14, all competitions.
Just 10 and 14.
Still a good season, but 20 and 20, my goodness.
See, looking at Sancho's numbers and the issues that he has is that he overperformed significantly. His expected goals plus assists was, I think, around 14 in 18-19, 18-19-20, and then back to 14. So he's in the 15 goals plus assists range in the Bundesliga year on year. That's very good. The issue was he was overperforming significantly. So the issue is he's heading to the Premier League. He's overperformed already.
Very completely. We see he's going to struggle. Look at Chelsea. Look at the two players, Havertz and
Maguire hasn't been a terrible signing for Manchester United, but he's called a flop on a daily basis. If Jadon Sancho doesn't get 15 goals plus assists, he's being labeled as a flop, as harsh as that may be.
£73 million. I think still a big number. It's their third or fourth highest transfer.
He's a very, very good signing. I'm excited to see him play for Manchester United. I think his impact on Wan-Bissaka is going to be very apparent. It's going to mean that Wan-Bissaka doesn't have to look like Bambi on ice when he's trying to dribble a football. And he can Sancho can really carry that right-handed side attacking play and be a really creative force there. That'll help them increase their expected goals number, which I think is actually going to be a really big deal.
So you're saying
I'm picking De Gea as the guy to go in terms of start Henderson.
That's a lot of money.
I don't think you can offload De Gea. He's their highest paid player.
$250,000.
He's their highest paid player. That was about
300,000.
He's a really high paid player, but I think you start the younger guy. I think that De Gea starts the season on the bench, and if Henderson struggles, then maybe you bring in De Gea. I don't think you want. I hated the goalkeeper battle from day one, especially when there was Romero as your third choice. Romero is a tremendous backup. I would have almost moved De Gea on last year and had Dean Henderson be your number one. You should.
What are you going to get for him at this point?
I think, is an issue with Solskjaer. Is he was indecisive at first, and now he's left with this really tough spot between Henderson and De Gea. So my pick is Henderson because De Gea's what he should be saving more of the shots. He should be keeping more goals out. Look at the stats. And he's not as good as he was in 17-18, which was his best season by far. So he's been decreasing. I think Henderson can only increase.
I don't disagree. I think Henderson's a better option here. I think Rafael Varane for $45 million, which is what the rumor is.
Yeah.
I think flaws and all, it's a great price.
I think,
especially for the cover, as we talked about, that he provides for Maguire.
I think the great thing about him is the price.
Only because he can run fast.
Yes.
And nothing else he has to do.
The price point makes it so that way you don't have to offload other center back options. You can keep depth in the center back position. We saw with Liverpool, they entered the season with just 3 senior center backs, which is always a bad idea. And it bit them in the butt. Very early on in the season. So Varane would allow them to keep a Lindelof, a Tuan Zabi, an Eric Bailly, and develop them because they're still pretty young guys in terms of center back ages, and they can still develop. And he's 28 with Maguire, so he hand in hand fits you with this peak you want to have. You have a lot of young players in attack, but this defense you kind of want to merge in terms of it's where it's playing. Varane had a bad year last season. 1 year left on his contract. I think 45 million euros, around 40 million pounds, is a really good deal for probably Madrid. They probably want a bit more, but he's not going to sign a new contract. United are the only team in for him. It's again good isolation by Murtaugh, and I think that's going to be a good signing.
So the defensive midfielder position, which is one of the hardest things to recruit for. We've talked about this off air quite a lot. But Ruben Neves at Wolves, there's no links right now, but he is a much cheaper option than a Declan Rice, rumored at $100 million. I mean, how much can you pour into a club when your revenues are in the shape that they're in? Can you get a guy like Ruben Neves for 35 to 40 million?
I think with Neves, Wolves will know his value to them, and they will not let him go easily. But in my eyes, what he has great passing range. He can ping a goal. He's about 5 goals last season in the Premier League, and he's a very defensively solid option at 24, so has a lot of room to continue development.
I love that as a signing for you.
So I think it's not a revolutionary idea.
Is it enough to keep Pogba
I
happy?
I don't know if Neves can play as a solo defensive midfielder in a 4-3-3. I don't know if he's played like that.
Does Ole know that's actually an option?
I think in midfield too, he'd be good. I don't know. The issue is,
God, I don't like Ole here, do I? I sound terrible.
Thing is, right? Pogba can't play in a midfield pivot too. Even if he had
with Matic, he did.
Even if he had prime Vieira next to him, I don't know if he could do that as effectively as he did under Jose Mourinho.
And he does it alongside Conte in the French club. The French national team.
That being said, there's a lot of talent in that France side. So I think Neves, is he the guy to unlock Pogba? I'm not sure. Camavinga is heavily linked. Eduardo Camavinga is a tremendous talent at the age of 18.
That's going to be a lot of money.
30 million, actually.
That's insane.
Because he has a year left on his contract.
It's too
So,
where is he?
At Rennes.
Rennes, that's right.
So I think that would be a great signing for the long term. But the issue is, he walks in day one and he's this 18-year-old kid who cannot fill the shoes of a Matic, cannot hold the defensive responsibilities as a lone defensive mid. I don't care if he has the attributes for it. You cannot thrust that responsibility on him at such a young age. No. So a Neves is an interesting blend.
Oh, Sancho is what, 20?
He's 21. I think it's tough on Sancho too, especially after the penalty miss. He's going to be, mentality is going to be a huge thing for him. And is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, what I will give him credit for is he can foster mentality very, very well.
No, that's true. He does.
I think he's a very positive guy. And I think that Rashford and Sancho will benefit a lot after the struggles in the Euros and the very last match. He will be a very good calming presence for them to walk into. Neves is my pick because he's long-term. But I imagine if I was Manchester United, the best thing to do would get a guy in the age range of Varane and Maguire, a 28, 29-year-old, who's got the legs that Matic doesn't, but also has a lot of experience and can fill that role.
Well, look at how, Man City, you mentioned it earlier, they're holding on to Fernandinho because they can't.
The issue is, does a player like that exist? How many great defensive mids exist? Ndidi, Rice, or
Rodri, pretty good.
So expensive. Rodri was really expensive when they bought him from Atletico Madrid. So it's a really
Declan Rice, $100 million. Like, you get that and you're fine.
You're fine for the next decade plus. But the issue is, it's $100 million. They don't have that after spending on it, Sancho. So I think Neves, I don't think the price point could be as cheap, and it may be.
That's $200 million between those three players.
Yeah, it is. It's really, I think it's needed for Manchester United. But here's the last thing I'll say is, a side that has Henderson in net, Wan-Bissaka, maybe even Kieran Trippier. We didn't mention him, but him as a good right back option to alternate with Wan-Bissaka. Another discussion though. Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Varane, Luke Shaw. Best left back in the world. It's a great back line. You have Ruben Neves, Pogba, Bruno, Sancho, Cavani, Rashford. That's a title-winning side. And if he doesn't win a title with that, you have to look at your options elsewhere to hire as a manager. But
got to win a trophy. And roll deep in Europe.
Satiate the trophy curse that they've had for about 4 years now. It's been 8 years since the league title. 13 since the Champions League.
Shield? They're not in the Community Shield. That's going to be City and
Leicester.
FA Cup. Leicester. Yeah, that's right.
I always forget that Leicester won the FA Cup this year. It slips under the radar a lot. But yeah, they ended up doing that.
Well, there's a perfect window for United. Neves, I do think, would be a fantastic fit, especially at that price point, to solve and hopefully unlock, what Pogba can do. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I think that's the biggest indictment of Ole.
System is more so the thing that would unlock Pogba than a defensive mid personnel position.
You got to be able to do something other than
stick him at left wing.
4-2-3-1.
Exactly.
That'll do it for us. Please let us know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe as ever. Jack, Conrad, this has been the Footy 5. Please look for us on the Twitter. Take care now.